My name is Rebecca Brennis, and I'm here to introduce the topic of industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture has grown immensely since its development in the mid-20th century. Global population growth has led to the widespread use of industrial agriculture, and it is currently the most common system of food production in the United States. It is the most common system of food production due to its ability to produce large amounts of food at a reasonable cost for the population. Industrial agriculture is characterized by monoculture, which is the cultivation of only one crop in an area. Monoculture has contributed to biodiversity loss in our environment. Chemical inputs, which have had harmful impacts on human health and the environment, is also another characteristic of industrial agriculture, as well as concentrated animal feeding operations. Industrial agriculture is unsustainable because it does not support the social and environmental pillars of sustainability, and my classmate Rachel will further discuss the detrimental effects that industrial agriculture is having on our socio-ecological systems.
Hi, I'm Rachel Perkins. Some of the major issues surrounding industrial agriculture are eutrophication, greenhouse gas emissions, and biodiversity loss. Eutrophication happens when heavy rainfall runoff washes away fertilizers from farms and carries them downstream into freshwater systems. The fertilizer aids the growth of aquatic plants in these systems, allowing them to bloom continuously, depleting these ecosystems of oxygen. Eventually, this kills the fish in the area and causes what is known as a dead zone. Greenhouse gases are a major long-term issue caused by industrial agriculture. Livestock are forced to live in tightly confined facilities designed for the most efficient mass production. These facilities do not mimic the fields and pastures cattle naturally graze in, and waste is directed into concentrated areas, causing a continuous massive increase to greenhouse gas emissions already produced by the livestock themselves. These emissions are continually eroding our ozone layers and contributing to global warming. Lastly, industrial agriculture discourages biodiversity. Instead of growing different kinds of plants and crops that encourage a natural balance with pests, farms are contracted to only grow one kind of crop for mass production. With an endless supply of food for bugs, harmful pesticides are needed to control their populations, ultimately contaminating the food we eat.
Over important stakeholders within the industrialization of agriculture. First one is farmers. According to the Farm Bureau, the average American farmer today produces enough food for 155 people, which sounds good on paper, but in reality, each farmer is isolated from the rest of the community. Being a farmer should not be a sacrifice of important connections and relationships within the community. That's why it's important to restore shared values such as healthy food, healthy land, and healthy communities and families. Supporting local farms would take the pressure off mass production and put more value onto the good of the people. Second one is the government. The government is responsible for the laws and regulations of society. As of September 16th of 2015, the first ever national food loss and waste goal in the United States was launched, calling for a 50% reduction by 2030. Although this food waste challenge has been launched, it is still considered just an option, not a requirement. If the government truly wants to reduce waste, they need to create bigger goals of banning all plastic and making categorized waste services more accessible. The third one is consumers. Support, educate, and act. Consumers are important because they drive the demand for certain products or services. It is our responsibility as a consumer to support companies with green initiatives and educate ourselves about more sustainable eating habits. The fourth stakeholder is corporations. In working towards a more sustainable future and keeping up with rising population rates, it is more important for each corporation to reduce, recover, and recycle. Reduce food waste by improving product development, storage, shopping/ordering, marketing, labeling, and cooking methods. Recover food waste by connecting potential donors to hunger relief organizations like food banks and pantries. Recycle food waste to feed animals or to create compost, bioenergy, and natural fertilizers.
My name is David Shaw. I want to talk about a couple of key strategies we can use to promote sustainable agriculture within the community. For starters, we as citizens can make our voice heard through our buying choices. Opting for locally sourced organic goods produced by small farms when we go to the grocery store, as well as reducing our meat consumption, can make a positive impact on our community and the environment. It does this in 3 different ways, which correspond to the 3 pillars of sustainability, which are economic, social, and environmental. In choosing local, we would be reducing the number of miles our food must travel before it gets to us. And according to a report by the Department of Agriculture, that doesn't necessarily mean much in terms of emissions saved, just simply by virtue of the efficiency of industrial methods versus local. But as I mentioned in just a second, there is still a positive social aspect to that. Reducing our meat consumption reduces demand for livestock, which does lead to fewer greenhouse gas emissions, as cattle produce a great deal of emissions. And that reduces our ecological footprint, which is the environmental impact. As I hinted at a second ago, there is a social benefit to local goods as well. According to that same DOA report, public health could be improved as food may be more nutritious coming straight from the source rather than being subjected to industrial processing and transportation. And lastly, the money circulating within the community would lead to economic gains for farmers and businesses. So this is one strategy to utilize to move towards a more sustainable community. Another strategy that goes hand in hand with that is political involvement. So again, we as citizens can make an impact by voting and lobbying our government leaders for new policies and regulations that support sustainability. And voting doesn't have to stop with ballots either. Voting with our wallets can be a impactful option as well, because buying sustainably sourced goods instead of mass-produced ones will signal our preferences to producers.
Hi, my name is Sammy and my goal is to create a more sustainable future. In this future, we will begin to change our habits and decrease our impact on the environment. We will be powered by renewable energy and all have access to sanitary water and clean food that's made without harmful polluting chemicals. There are many ways that we can do this, including educating ourselves, getting the community to put on events that educate others, along with voting for officials and calling them to make sure they understand our position on climate issues. We can also contribute time through volunteering or money to organizations whose goals are to increase sustainable practices, such as benefit corporations. They do not just focus on maximizing profits like most other corporations, but also work towards positive social and environmental issues. They are accountable for their actions and transparent. These corporations are now legal in 33 states, and many other states are working on bills to make them legal. The goal is for these companies to become the norm, and it's becoming possible. Other ways to solve specifically the concern of industrial agriculture is to consume less. Make sure to recycle and buy organic and local if you can. Also, look up the corporations that you buy your products from and make sure they align with your beliefs. Make sure they do not waste water, use a bunch of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or other equipment that can lead to pollution and land degradation. Push companies to integrate more sustainable practices and push the government to create environmentally sound policies that have long-term goals. Companies like Interface, which produce carpets, has taken these goals into account and have gained profits while becoming more sustainable because they are focusing on adaptability and innovation. These types of companies are trying to set a precedent for new and old companies alike to take responsibility for their pollution and make life better for generations to follow.